James, first, while that is a high profile, we have a number of high profile bills. One of the things that we try to do in this office is to take on the projects that very often aren't taken on because it comes with a cost of criticism. Ultrasound would be that example. I was pro-life long before I, ran for office. I've been involved in raising money and speaking to crisis pregnancy centers and Texas Right to Life for years. So this is not a new passion for me. As a Christian, there are certain times in your life when you are measured of where are your real core beliefs and what do you really stand for. Times that you have to stand up and be counted. You've done that by serving in the military. You decide to stand up and be counted. And so on this issue, if I believe in the Bible, which I do, is the Word of God, and if God says that we are made in His image, then abortion is more than just taking the life of a baby. It's really an assault on God. And so I'm standing for that life in the womb, but I'm also standing for my Christian principles. God created the womb to be an area of protection for the first 9 months of our life. I mean, it's interesting. When we give our people say, how old are you? Well, I'm 6. We're really 6 and 9 months. We don't count that first 9 months, but we're alive. And so my job as a Texas senator, first and foremost, by the Constitution, is to protect the life of Texans. I mean, more important than anything else is protecting the lives of Texans. And I consider those babies in the womb to be Texans from conception. So ultrasound, unfortunately I can't overturn Roe v. Wade. That's above my area of influence or power. But I can do all I can do in Texas. And in Texas, we have doctors performing abortions. 80,000 last year, 1 every 10 minutes in Texas on average. We have doctors performing abortion who don't take an ultrasound. That's just bad medicine. That puts the woman's life at risk. You wouldn't set a broken leg without an x-ray. So part of this bill is to make sure we have best practices and a terrible practice, at least that safeguard. The second thing is, and I don't shy away from this at all or apologize for it, I know that by taking the ultrasound and showing it to the woman, or making her aware that it's available, because our bill says she may or may not, that she's forced to look at it, but she may, and she may hear the heartbeat, that's going to impact a lot of women's decisions. When they see that ultrasound, when they hear that heartbeat, they're going to realize it's not a mass of tissues, cells in there, it's a baby. A unique individual that's hers, and hers alone. And so that's why this bill is important. I read a book a long time ago by an attorney, famous attorney, who supposedly never lost a case, Jerry Spence. It was called How to Win an Argument Every Time. And the premise of the book was, you can't win an argument with someone who has a closed mind or a bias. You can only win an argument, you can only be persuasive, you can only win the debate if someone is really willing to debate the issue. I was in a committee hearing today on an education issue, for example. One of the witnesses who was opposing my bill said, this is non-negotiable, Senator. And so, quite frankly, there's no sense really continuing that discussion when people take that position. So on the voter ID, for those who are fighting it, they have not been able to give any reason why they are fighting it, and except a pure political reason. So what we need to do, James, in Texas as a Republican Party is something the Republican Party in the United States Congress failed to do. We need to show leadership. We need to show that we're the majority, and on the tough decisions, it's going to be our way. 80% or more of what we pass in the Senate and in this legislature is really bipartisan. There are local issues that impact Democrats, impact Republicans, and I'm always happy to co-author, and I have done it many times, bills with Democrats. I had 3 Democrats last session who got my ultrasound bill out of committee and out of the Senate for me. So we do work together. But there are a few issues where there's going to be this political divide. Voter ID is one of those. where there will be a line in the sand. That's their words, not mine, in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram before session. Non-negotiable was a word. And so in those areas, if you try to work out a compromise and the other side doesn't want to compromise, then the majority has to step forward and take the lead. We have the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the House. We still have the House by a thin margin, but we have it. The Senate, every other statewide office. What are we waiting for? Let's get the job done on the issues that the people elected us for. There's a reason that we have two parties in Texas. And in America, there are differences of opinion. I respect the other side. And you know what? I don't like anything that Barack Obama has done since he became president. And Nancy Pelosi is a danger. She's the most dangerous woman in America. But you know what? They're doing what they told their voters they would do. It's time the Republicans do that when they're in the majority. People elected us as the majority of Texas for a reason. They made a decision that when it comes to their political philosophy and the things that they want to see in Texas, that the majority of Texas, by a rather wide number, agree with Republicans and not the views of the Democrats. So it's time for us to govern as we campaigned, govern as we promised. And that's what, if there's one thing that I try to be consistent on every day, and the best satisfaction I get is when someone from home tells me, Dan, you did exactly what you said you were going to do. That's what we need to do. The key is that we have major crossing points into Texas, and that's where we need to have our people. That's where we need to have boots on the ground. I'm not as much worried about no man's land out there in Del Rio, where you can see for miles and miles and miles, and you can stop those people fairly easy. It's El Paso and Juarez, Laredo and Nuevo Laredo. It's McAllen and Reynosa. And other major ports. That's where we need to concentrate our forces to protect our state. And I think the governor's prepared to do that if the situation calls for it. In terms of a meltdown in Mexico, that, to be very honest with you, we're seeing. Last week I was on Fox News and I was criticized for saying how bad the situation was in Texas. Criticized by a few people here in the Capitol. Dan is exaggerating. I said to people watching on Fox, don't let your children, if they're in college, go to Mexico, even Acapulco or Cancun or Cozumel for spring break. And today I was just told a few moments ago that the University Association of the United States has issuing warnings to students, don't go. The State Department issued a warning after my appearance on Fox. It's a crisis on the border. It's a crisis in that country. And part of the reason, James, is because Vicente Fox, as president, did nothing to take on the drug cartels. Felipe Calderon has made a major effort. He's at war. They are at war in their country. They're using hand grenades, bazookas, car bombings, roadside bombs. This is going to be a full-scale war that's going to get much worse before it gets better. And depending on who wins will depend on how we're impacted in Texas and in America.